Okay, hi everybody. Today is Tuesday, November 10th. This is the SIG Testing bi-weekly meeting at which we adhere to the Kubernetes Code of Conduct by being our very best selves. I am your host, Aaron Krickenberger. You can see me as SpiffXP on all the things. If you have a problem with us adhering to the Code of Conduct, please reach out to conduct@kubernetes.io, or you're also welcome to reach out to me personally on Slack, email, GitHub, whatever. Our agenda today is pretty light. I only see two things on the agenda. And the first one is mine. So I'll just roll right on to that. Basically, I just wanted to check in and see how folks think we are doing with mitigating Docker Hub's rate limiting on image pools. I have not been keeping super tight track of things. I'll be honest, I'm kind of, because we just don't have a way to instrument the various ways that a Docker image can be pulled, it's difficult to have like a single source of truth on whether or not image pulls are being impacted or not. Right, those ways are the kubelet trying to pull down an image to run a pod. It could be Docker inside of that image attempting to pull things down. It could be clusters that we have stood up elsewhere that are trying to download pods, and clusters that we have stood up elsewhere also using Docker and Docker. All of those have different ways of logging. None of them log authoritatively to the same common place. So to recap where we are at, I reached out to Docker to look at applying for an open source exemption. They came back with a bunch of marketing requests that didn't seem fully reasonable, but more importantly, the exemption was for egress of any images we happen to publish to Docker Hub. That is to say, if we were publishing images to Docker Hub, other users could download them as many times as they want without rate limit, which is nice for open source projects. But we made a decision a long time ago not to publish anything to Docker Hub. So that really gets us no benefit. So I'm trying to continue the discussion to see what other mitigations we could have for ingress of images. The existing mitigations we have are the use of Google Cloud's mirror registry, which acts as a pull-through cache. Everything in our Proud build clusters is automatically configured to use that. Every end-to-end cluster that is stood up with kubeup.sh is also automatically configured to use that. And thus far, I haven't seen any complaints and I haven't seen any mysterious errors arise. I know that Docker has not just flipped a switch and immediately flipped us over to the new rate limit. I have a link in the meeting notes to their increase rate limits page, which you can check periodically if you're curious, where they say what they've lowered the rate limit to. It's about 1,000 images every 6 hours. The final target is 100 images every 6 hours. And then they occasionally turn on the full 100 image limit for certain windows. And we are in the middle of one of those windows right now. So from 3 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific today, the full rate limit is being applied. And so, you know, if that stuff is happening, we should be seeing it by now. Any questions, comments, or concerns on
that? Can you share the link to where you can see this?
It's in the meeting notes. I'll paste the actual link in chat as well. So, okay, not hearing any anything else on that.
I want to add that we seem to have so far not heard any pain from our users yet. I think outside of a couple of sub projects, we don't really have images hosted on Docker Hub ourselves. And from an ingress point of view, projects also have the mitigation of just not choosing to use Docker Hub images from whatever downstream project they're consuming it from. I'm potentially going to follow up on the open source project egress bit for the kind sub project.
Okay, that sounds cool. Ben, I can help you if you want. The form's pretty easy to fill out, but I have experience filling that out for Kubernetes.
Thanks.
Okay, next up, Antonio, you wanted to talk about fun with promotion of P2E images.
Fun because I'm following the people trying to someone merge something, then another try to retry the job. Then when I try to promote one image, only some images are being rebuilt, but it turns out that you change everything in that folder and all the conformance are rebuilt. I wanted to understand better how to try to align this effort of the images for the E2E test. In which SIG should this?
I mean, I think this is a great SIG to have this conversation. So here's the state of things that I'm aware of. Claudiu has been making a bunch of changes to how images are built, trying to get us to use Docker build X, and then making sure the right flags are set for that to use. And it's been bug fix after bug fix to try to get that to work. And I think he has the image build working, but I believe there is a problem building the server core cache image that was discussed a little while ago about it's an image that hosts some of the Windows binaries that we need to import into other images, and it greatly reduces the build size. And so there was a change checked into the job config, and we wanted to re-trigger that job with the new config. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, in Browse UI, if you click on a job, there's a little rerun button. I guess I could demo this real quickly. But the point is the rerun button just reruns what was already triggered. Okay, so hooray, we're looking at Browse UI. There are a bunch of jobs listed. For grins, I'll just focus on the jobs that are for Kubernetes. And post Kubernetes basal build, for example. So if I click the magnifying glass, I get this completely illegible to you. I get this big old pile of YAML, which is the actual proud job CRD. And so it describes like what should we run. It's got the extra refs, it's got the container arguments and all that stuff. So rerunning a job is basically taking this YAML and then just reapplying it in the cluster. So making another CRD resource with everything the same here. That is different from re-triggering a job. So if you've made changes to a job's config, clicking the rerun button, which it's this little guy here, and then rerun, won't pick up your new changes. That is the problem that I think we were having with the server core image. So we need to just either introduce a dummy commit that would cause, I think it's a post submit job in this case that we're having problems with. I think I could even go to all job types post submit so we could see all those. Yeah. And so the problem is that that job doesn't show up in this list, so I can't click the rerun button to rerun it that way. But further, because we're trying to test out new job config changes, we need to create a brand new CRD of the job, or we need to re-trigger it. And so the only other way to do that is for somebody with write access to the prow service cluster, which would be test infra on call, to use a command called mkpj or mkpj. So going to prow cmd. I think it even shows up in here. Yeah. Dev tools. mkpj creates prow jobs using the prow configuration. It itself does not have a README, unfortunately. But so somebody from on call could run this command and that would re-trigger the job without having to like merge a dummy commit to trigger the post submit. So that's one thing. I am not a member of test infra on call, so I don't have write access to the cluster, so I cannot solve this problem for you. I will happily merge a dummy PR to trigger this, or can poke whoever is on call to ask them to run this command. So that's that part of it. Any questions on the re-triggering the server core thing?
No, I think that's. I think that Claudio had a pushback on the dummy commit from someone.
Okay, I'll take a look at that.
I think we are. That's a different dummy commit you're talking about.
Ah, okay, sorry. That's
The dummy commit you made it on KK registry, and
okay.
Aaron was talking about the server core periodic job, right?
Yeah, I do. I know what Antonio's talking about. I just don't have it in front of me on this computer. I did see pushback on another PR that was a dummy commit to trigger something. Same situation there. Like if it's just a matter of re-triggering, test infra on call should be able to do that. But if we're, urgently blocked by this, I can have a conversation with whoever was holding up the PR to see if, we can use this workaround.
Yeah, well, to be fair, if it's urgent, I think the dummy PR can just be merged if it's urgent, especially since the freeze is coming so soon.
Exactly. Okay.
Yeah, that's my point. I mean, I prefer to have all the tests merged before the freeze to that later, because right now you can catch things, but once you merge the tests, maybe they start to fail, right? So it's not a big urgency, but for me is to have the tests work.
So I share that concern. I will say, not release team, that there's a separate part in the release schedule called test freeze. So, test freeze is the date after which no more tests may be added. So before this date, it's totally fine to fix tests and add new tests and stuff. After this date, the goal is to fix or revert or remove whatever tests are failing. So for this cycle, test freeze is November 23rd, which is like, I don't know, a week and a half after code freeze. So we'll still have plenty of time to merge test-related fixes, but I do agree with you that it would be helpful to land test things earlier so that any bug fixes that need to be done as a result of those tests also have the opportunity to land earlier. So I'll work on that. The other thing I think you wanted to discuss was that you have this PR to automatically build modified E2E images, because it seems like you're saying right now the post submit job, this job here, you think it only promotes the conformance image? Is that correct? Or only pushes the conformance image?
I think that's current status, but if it's Claudio here, I think that he's the person that knows best.
Yeah, currently, whenever changes to the Kubernetes /test images are being made, basically in a cloud build.yaml file, it's specified that it's gonna make the all dash conformance images target, which is a list of images that, from what I saw, were commonly used in conformance tests. And only those images. Those images are the BusyBox image, the Agnost image, Kitten, Nautilus, resource consumer, sample API server, and a few other images which kind of escape my mind right now. I didn't include all the images because some of them take an egregious amount of time to build, which was there, like, I don't remember which ones, but especially the pets images, which, to be honest, I never saw them anywhere in E2E tests being used. Those take a lot of time to build, and we are currently limiting the job at 1 hour or something. And with that, with all the images that I tried to build once, it was taking me like 3 hours to build everything.
I don't have any special concern, just that I had to update one image, and right now I'm in a loop because I'm not able. It's one image that is going to be updated now. It wasn't updated in 2 or 3 years, and I don't think that it's going to be updated anymore. But I need to update the image. So that's why I'm fine with whatever thing you decide, because you are consuming this practically weekly or around. And I just wanted to solve this problem. And I suggested this, but I don't know if this is really what you need.
Yeah, the idea was to just have a subset of images which covered the 99% of all the tests and cases. Obviously, it doesn't cover 100%, and I was planning sometime in the future, when I was finishing with all my work items, to just have like an all images target or something, which would be an expanding list of images that we would build. But indeed, it would be even more better to just build images that only those have to be rebuilt. But that question is a bit more difficult to answer. For example, since we switched recently to build X, I would typically publish a different image and version because of that, since it's a totally different approach to building images, in my opinion.
Well, what does it mean for a person like me that doesn't know all these insight of building me images? Why is different?
So is the question, why does switching to build X mean we should publish new versions of all of our images?
Yeah, that was just an example. One other example would be the fact that we should have had S390X support for all the test images, but it was never working. And we fixed that in imageutil.sh and makefile or something like that. And we didn't really touch the images themselves, their Docker files. But in this scenario, we would have to rebuild all the images, right?
Okay, it's the platforms and all these things. Okay.
Yeah, just some examples that are coming to my mind right now.
So, in order, so and then it makes sense to keep doing the conformance. So, but for me to be able to promote the image, how should I do? Should I add the image to the conformance list, submit a PR, wait until it is promoted, and then submit another PR to remove it from there so they don't keep rebuilding it?
I have a question, Aaron. Is it possible to have the image builder also act as a trigger? And then you basically say slash build image name or something like that. And then you would just pass that what image to the image builder job, which is going to be triggered. And then would basically cover any kind of different image that would have to be built. That's not in the current list of images.
Right. That would be neat. I feel like that has a lot, many more implications that need to be thought through. So the idea is basically to trigger a trusted type of job as a pre-submit. So right now, all the image building jobs have to run as post submits. We don't want them to run as pre-submits because we don't want them to build untrusted code. So in order for this to be usable by people we trust, we would need to build in like an authorization mechanism to the trigger plugin, or we'd have to create a brand new command.
Why do we need it in pre-submit? I didn't catch that.
So it sounded like Claudia was asking if we could just do like a /build and then this image name and have that build an image.
But before the PR merges?
So okay, what would it look like if we did that after the PR merged?
I think it would be a button like the rerun. But you want like rerun with new config, I think, is the problem that we have here.
So it could be that we look at the idea of adding manual post submit triggering. And you could like run /test whatever on a given PR after it is merged. Or offering the ability to manually trigger post submits through the UI is another option. I'm not sure off the top of my head what the best way is to do that sort of thing. Another suggestion I had, just for the moment, is we do have this run if changed field here on prow jobs, and right now we only have one job, and it runs if anything in test images changes. And so as a result, yeah, that's going to have to build everything. But it could be what we may actually want to do is go change this up to have like a job per subdirectory in images. So then we could have a job that pushes just the AGN host image, or we can have a job that just pushes the Nginx images, or whatever image Antonio is trying to promote. That feels like that fits with the system we have in place right now. It would be a lot more copy paste or whatever, but should be relatively straightforward.
But I think that this is okay because I only plan to I had this. I tried to put this image into unhost, but it was more complicated than I thought. So I decided to just promote the current image. But I don't think that nobody else is going to have this problem. And if this system is working, I think that's the best idea. I will create a new job and then we can delete it.
I don't find keeping a new job around. That's okay.
Well, I mean, if everybody agrees, I think that is the best way. Because this way, I don't need to change anything. I see that people is working on that conformance, and I don't want to modify everything just for one image that is going to be changed once.
To be fair with Aaron's suggestion, the image building would be more atomic or more granular, which would also mean that, yeah, sure, it failed for one image, but it worked for the different images, and you can still promote those successful images, which would be great.
Right.
It wouldn't be failed the whole job just because one image failed, which would be a nice addition. Also, question, you said that you would have a lot of duplicate config files. Can't that be solved by presets? Basically create a preset which would contain the gist of it and just create a new job with the diff that you will need it.
I wish I could say the answer was yes, but I believe the answer is that presets are very limited in what they support.
Okay.
I don't know if I can get to it really quickly. They were intended to kind of mimic the pod preset resource, which I don't think has ever left alpha. Like it was intended to be a Kubernetes feature, and I don't know if that's actually going to ever get promoted to beta or GA. So I think it only applied to volumes and environment variables and maybe one other thing. So we could consider, huh?
Volume mounts is the third thing.
Volume mounts. So like we could consider augmenting Prow's preset functionality to start patching in more stuff. but I'm not sure if that's the direction people will want to go. Another option is, I think some folks somewhere, the SIG storage folks have basically created a script that automatically generates a bunch of YAML files. I don't think this script is like rerun by CI or anything. A human like runs this script to update their job config, and then they open a PR with that. But I feel like this could be the quickest way to just automatically generate a job for every single one of these folders in the Kubernetes test E2E images directory or test images directory. I mean, it's a lot of, it's a lot of copy paste, and there is some manual toil involved. But I feel like it's the quickest approach now. Does anybody have any suggestions for like, what's a longer term investment we could make that would better solve this problem?
I can help with that. I mean, if we can do a job per each image. If you have a list of images, Claudio or whatever, put in an issue, and I will pick from there and I start creating jobs.
Okay. Looks like we lost Claudio. So let's say this is plan of record. I'll open up an issue and I'll assign you and Claudio to it just to get his comments on there, if that sounds good.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was pointing at the screen. Let me, to Antonio, I will assign it to you. Okay. I see Claudio is rejoining to audio, so I'll just wait before we move on to the next topic. And I'll go ahead and stop sharing the screen. So Claudio, I think what we agreed to, I didn't quite notice when you dropped. We were suggesting like maybe it's quicker to just go ahead and have Antonio work on a script that will generate jobs for each of the images. And then that way we'll have a post-submit job per image in test E2E. And we'll try that going forward.
Yeah, that sounds good. Sorry, my battery died and I had to run to get a charger.
It's all good. So I'll open an issue and tag you two on it. Any other questions, comments, or concerns on this? Okay. Let's see. Flake tracker progress. I'm guessing, Rob, this is your item.
Yeah. So I just so if you click on that HackMD link, that part of the report has been generated by the Flake tracker. The code that generated that report, I've not yet pushed up to my repo. So I'll do that this week, and then I think over the next few days I'll get the last part working where so what I do is I'm still scraping from TestGrid, but it's nicely componentized out, and one of the to-dos is to interact with BigQuery in the future. But so I scrape the summary screen on TestGrid, and then for anything that's flaking, I then, having walked the TestGrid, I walk the CI signal project board, which isn't all of the reports, but in there we have a database of reported flakes. And what I'm attempting to do, slightly naively, is just to use the test names on the flaking jobs to find corresponding reported issues in GitHub. And that's not quite there yet. I have a little defect to eradicate, but I'd expect that to get that done in the next week. So hopefully by next Monday, each flaking test will have a list of associated issues with it. You're
scraping the UI or you're scraping the front end JSON?
I'm scraping the front end JSON.
Oh.
And then and then what I'm doing is that I'm attempting. So the front end JSON has has an array of linked bugs, and that's presently empty. So so that's what I'm trying to decorate and flesh out.
I think, but I don't know for certain, I think that this code, Google Cloud Platform Test Grid Command Summarizer, I believe this is the thing that ends up
Being
writing
called.
the object that
Yeah.
ends up getting served as JSON.
Oh, yeah. If you stick that into the meeting minutes or the chat, that'd be awesome. I'll take a look at that.
Sure.
The way, like I said, this is kind of a little bit of R&D / proof of concept sprint. I'd really like to see this in test grid. I'm beginning to form opinions around our workflow in, and I suppose eventually what I'd like to see is that we semi-automatically report issues around flakes and failures in CI. And what I would propose is that we generate the initial, that effectively that we automatically fill out the issue in GitHub, but not automatically create the issue, if that makes sense. So that we fill out the form in GitHub, but have humans review it. I'm just afraid of a Skynet scenario where we end up automatically creating a load of reported issues and it gets out of control. But I like the idea of perhaps gathering as automatically as possible, gathering all of the text that goes into a reported flake and failure in GitHub. I believe this is potentially, I don't know if that'd be a welcome change or a welcome improvement. But I'd have to line my ducks up in order to put that forward, I think. I'm not even 100% sure about it myself.
Great. The flags are not really easy and obvious. Of course they're not. I think we had something at some point that created issues in GitHub automatically as a result of the top flakes in triage. So the code to actually create issues still lives here in Test Infra Robots issue creator.
Okay, yeah.
Might be something you could use to help with the issue creation thing. I think
Yeah.
what we, somewhere in one of these flags, we limited the number of issues that it could create to avoid the sort of Skynet scenario that you're talking about.
Yeah.
We could just have it like create 2 issues or something like that to see what happens there.
Yeah, I think from the philosophical standpoint, there's an issue with issues, and the what we want to do is, and the part that's hard to automate is to use best judgment when collating information about tests that are failing or flaking. What we want to do is basically set the table for somebody who maintains the test to troubleshoot and fix the test. And in setting the table and collating all of the evidence to say, well, this test is flaking, it's flaking in these jobs. There's a lot of there's a certain amount of judgment that has to be used in putting that together. And one of the frustrations that I think developers have and test maintainers have is if too many issues are being logged, and if their attention is being spread out across multiple issues. So that's the background thought I have on, well, how do we automate this? Should we automate it? To what extent should we automate it? And really what I want to do is just improve the workflow whereby somebody who's very interested in CI Signal or works in the CI Signal team can do this in a coherent and efficient manner. And then ultimately, it's not clear to me that a casual passerby or somebody who expresses a casual interest in reporting noise in the signal ultimately, that's the ultimate goal, is that a casual user could report noise in the signal in a simple and easy way. And that's where I'm struggling a little bit. I might need to be here for another few months before I can make strong pronouncements on that. Like, I mean, it's a tricky one.
Okay.
If I say months, I maybe half a year.
Yeah, there's certainly lots of data to work with. So what I'm hearing you say is you want to start with, you feel like the noise level on test failures is really high. You think there's a limited amount of people who can actually troubleshoot test failures. So you want to raise the sort of noise floor, as it were, so that anything that peaks above a really high noise floor is what we want to pay attention to.
Not really, no. How would I put this? So the current set of powers afforded to a test grid user are vast, and they're numerous. And if you sit with test grid regularly, I think I've said this before, when you sit with test grid on a daily basis, you can use all of the features it has there for you in order to collate the evidence to go, here's a flake, it's flaking on this job, it's flaking on this job, but not this job. I want to make that, and that in conjunction with triage, there's a bit of wrangling that needs to be done there to collate the evidence. I'd like to automate that as much as possible, but acknowledging that it's not an easy thing to automate, And so currently what I'm thinking is that, and when you do that job day in, day out as part of CI Signal, you get a feel for it, and you figure out the workflow for gathering all of that evidence. I want to make that easier for sure for somebody who's doing it every day, but also the ultimate goal is to have somebody who's not doing it every day easily load the gun of to use a gun analogy. I want to automatically load the gun, but I want the human to pull the trigger.
Right.
Yeah. Apologies for the.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, but what I'm trying to get at is using humans as filters versus using any kind of existing.
Yeah, and using their judgment. Yeah. There's a certain amount of stuff that we can automate on this in relation to, I suppose really I could talk about this for ages, and I don't get caught in the weeds in this, but essentially to exercise the good judgment of A, gathering all the evidence, and B, so gathering the positive evidence, and gathering the negative evidence is the tricky part, I think, to automate. So where something is working, where something is not working, there's a lot of searching to be done in CI in order to help set out in issue form.
Yeah.
These are the first steps to pointing to root cause.
Okay. Do you feel like the process by which somebody would go gather all of that evidence is documented somewhere?
I don't know, to be honest. Like, I mean, it is to a certain degree, but I kind of feel that the more we automate this, the lower a need we'll have for documentation. Like, for me, where the documentation is now, for me, is spec for me. The specification for how to automatically lift and collate.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Whatever. I could also talk about this all day long. I don't want to hold this meeting hostage. I just like, having done a fair amount of time in CI Signal myself, the problem I wanted to see us collectively avoid was more people having to learn how to read the tea leaves. By building tools that either automatically read the tea leaves, or it sounds like maybe where we're at is automatically collating sort of related metrics and artifacts into one report.
It needs to be fairly white boxy, if that makes sense. Like, I don't want to obscure evidence gathering, or you know, like, I mean, I want to automatically gather evidence, but still everybody can see the evidence and where it came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah, you can't be. Yeah, I don't want to give somebody a magic wand to go just click that button, have a look at it, and then click that button. I don't think we'll get to that. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Grant, did you have
See
something?
some potentially low-hanging fruit just looking at test grid. I know if we look just at a cell or a row, you can do file a bug or attach to bug. It might be nice just to have a C-related failures, and if we have some standard that's like tab test name, it just links to a search in GitHub, and we could do that maybe for tabs as well. Just so if you see flakes in the tab, you can say, let me see everything related, potentially related, and it might make it a little easier for the lay test grid user.
Yeah, yeah, that's certainly a good idea. And then there's so operating at the test level, that would be useful, but then operating at the release level, we do kind of need to see a list of things are failing and flaking, and then the corresponding list of, you know, GitHub issues logged or not. Because from the use case point of view, I want to be able to see what has been logged, but also what has not been reported, what has been reported and what has not been reported.
Got it.
There's multiple viewpoints in this, and stakeholders, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Okay.
But let me, we can probably leave this here for now, and then we come back to this in 6 weeks and see where we're at, and then I can lay it all out, and we'll go, okay, what can we do here, and how can we make things better?
That sounds good to me. I was trying to quickly surf around and find some other prior art. You know, we had somebody work on something called entomologists a while ago that was supposed to, like, based on a well-known, you know how release notes for Kubernetes are sort of scraped from a well-known markdown block inside of. So I think we were thinking of something similar for test grid issues. That way you could link an issue to like a test failure, which test grid could then link to, something like that.
Yeah. In my wildest fantasies, it's an animated, non-directed graph of linking failures to flakes, and, you know, clicking them around and stuff. But yeah, have to take our baby steps first, you know.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Or would you all like 10 minutes back?
Just a minor question. Is there an easier or better way to view the actual logs from a pro job? For example, I've been digging a lot in the E2E test images pro job logs, but I basically have to jump through a couple of hoops to get the actual logs from the make command that was executed, you know?
Yes. So that is a bug, in my opinion. I'll place the bug in chat here. I'm of the opinion that at one point in time, we exported all logs from Google Cloud Build back into the artifacts directory for whichever proud job ended up triggering Google Cloud Build. It is a bug that you can't, that is not happening. And what I tracked it down to whenever I created this issue, I think, was that jobs that used variants had artifacts exported back. Jobs that did not have variants did not seem to get their logs back. So that ought to be enough to like go figure out which part of the code is not identifying that a log should be returned, or that should at least be enough to repro the issue.
Yeah, I remember when those logs were being exported as artifacts, as you say.
Yeah.
And I thought that maybe someone decided that shouldn't be the case.
No.
I didn't think it's not a bug, but it is a bit difficult, especially for newcomers, to get the actual logs from this.
So
Okay,
I'll
good to
CC
know.
you on the issue if you have time to take a look at it. It's definitely a bug.
Yeah, this happened in the past 2 months, maybe. I remember when I first finished the E2E test image job, I could actually see the logs in the pro job artifacts.
Yep.
But since then, I couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the name of the job?
E2E test images post submit
Okay.
something. I don't know the exact string.
Okay,
But
yeah,
that
that's
applies.
enough. We'll find it from that.
Yeah, I think that applies to almost all pro jobs,
Yeah.
if
So
I'm not mistaken.
I pasted a link in chat to like example of a failure. But if you take a look at the issue, like I linked to examples of crowd jobs that use the image builder to kick off Google Cloud Build, and they do successfully pull logs back. And then I have links of jobs that don't. So that should be enough for us to identify what's the common condition that causes this bug to happen and go fix it. It could be a bug in the image builder. It could be that permissions have changed somehow in a way that we're not aware of. But I haven't had time to go look at this. I haven't tagged it as help wanted because it's not clear to me that it is great for a new contributor. But if somebody wants to put the time in, it'd be really appreciated.
And can you put the issue into the meeting notes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I guess really quick while we're talking about logs, just for my own sake, is there a quicker way to view the logs beyond lenses for prow jobs? I know I've had some times where I'm looking through a prow logs and the lens just takes forever to render because there's so many lines.
I always just usually end up viewing the raw log file. So I think there's a link in Spyglass where I can like view raw build log.
Okay.
I will go to the artifacts directory and usually end up downloading that to like grep locally, something like that.
And you can use GS utils as well, generally, to bring them down.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay. If there's nothing else, I thank you all for showing up. Just to remind everybody, we're not going to have another SIG testing meeting until December because our regularly scheduled meeting would fall during the week of KubeCon. If we were to go 2 weeks after now, that would be the week of Thanksgiving in the US, which a number of people are going to be absent for that. So we'll see you all at the beginning of December. And happy Tuesday.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.